This is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com with your Sunday update for this third day of October 2010. And now for the real news. A UK global warming activist group hoping to kick off their new initiative to encourage people to reduce their carbon emissions by 10% per year has faced fierce backlash over a promotional video for their campaign. The video features an imaginary scenario in which everyone who does not volunteer to join the campaign is killed in a violent and bloody explosion. Targets of the grisly explosions, which show the victims' bodies torn apart and splattered blood and body parts covering all of the eco-friendly onlookers, include office workers and even school children.
Now, no pressure at all, but it'd be great to get a sense of how many of you might do this. Just a rough percentage. That's fantastic! And those not? Philip and Tracy. That's fine, that's absolutely fine. Your own choice. Okay, class, thank you so much for today, and I will see you all tomorrow. Oh, just before you go, I just need to press this little button here. Now, everybody, please remember to read chapters 5 and 6 on volcanoes and glaciation. Except for Philip and Tracy, of course.
The short film ends with another grisly act of eco-slaughter, with the victims' remains splattering the screen and the campaign slogan, "No pressure," being written literally in the victims' blood. Unsurprisingly, the video was pulled from the campaign's webpage and YouTube channel as thousands of comments and emails flooded in decrying the overt advocacy of genocide inherent in the ad. In a press release posted on the campaign's website, the organizers write, quote, "With climate change becoming increasingly threatening and decreasingly talked about in the media, we wanted to find a way to bring this critical issue back into the headlines whilst making people laugh. Many people found the resulting film extremely funny, but unfortunately some didn't, and we sincerely apologize to anybody we have offended." End quote. Although well-known climate hystericists like Joe Romm and Bill McKibben have feigned surprise over the message and tone of the brutal advertisement, many critics are pointing out that the visualization of the execution of those who question the multi-billion-dollar climate alarmism industry and its pronouncements is in fact merely the latest in a series of increasingly violent calls for action against so-called climate deniers. In 2006, Grist magazine writer David Roberts advocated a Nuremberg-like legal proceeding to try anthropogenic global warming skeptics for war crimes. In 2007, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. called for skeptics to be declared traitors and called for them to be tried for treason. In 2008, Canadian environmentalist David Suzuki called for government leaders who are skeptical of the hypothesis that the 3% trace gas that is added to the atmosphere by humans is in fact driving global climate and weather patterns be thrown in jail. In 2008, James Hansen of NASA called for climate skeptics to be charged with high crimes against humanity. The inevitable escalation of this virulently anti-free speech rhetoric came in June 2009 when the Talking Points memo blog released an op-ed under the title, "At what point do we jail or execute global warming deniers?" The columnist was forced to offer a full and complete retraction and withdrawal of the idea that the, quote, "right-wing fucktards," end quote, who question the anthropogenic global warming hoax be executed for their beliefs. The increasingly hysterical, totalitarian, and violent movement to silence scientific dissent on this issue, which has already generated billions of dollars in financing for scientists around the globe who otherwise would face difficulty funding their work, and which is set to generate billions of dollars for the well-connected insiders like Al Gore, Morris Strong, and Barry Soetoro, who helped set up the now faltering Chicago Climate Exchange, has also led to increasingly severe solutions to the supposed problem of human overpopulation and its effect on the environment. In 1989, Finnish philosopher and environmental guru Pentti Linkola wrote a chillingly prophetic anti-human screed about the need to set up an eco-fascist regime to eliminate the surplus population for the sake of the Earth. "Who misses all those who died in the Second World War," he writes in his vitriolic attack on the human population. "Who misses the 20 million executed by Stalin? Who misses Hitler's 6 million Jews? Israel creaks with overcrowdedness. In Asia Minor, overpopulation creates struggles for mere square meters of dirt." From this thesis that the world is overcrowded, Linkola goes on to advocate a totalitarian regime for the planet in which the privilege of giving birth is licensed by the state, anyone deemed defective by the state is summarily executed, independent business is stopped, and all technological achievements made in the past 100 years is destroyed. Linkola is not alone in arguing this agenda. The current White House science czar, John P. Holdren, penned a textbook in 1977 called Eco-Science, in which he proposes a global planetary authority that sterilizes its citizens by putting drugs in the water supply and commits forced abortions in order to combat the scourge of overpopulation and its attendant environmental ills. In the UK, well-known environmentalists like Sir David Attenborough and Jonathan Porritt support the Optimum Population Trust, a group that believes the world population needs to be drastically reduced to lower humanity's impact on the planet, and that has set up a carbon offset initiative where funds are diverted to help sterilize people in Africa. The idea that the world is overpopulated stems from Thomas Malthus, a 19th century British priest who predicted mass starvation and death across the UK and much of the world in the 19th century due to overpopulation. Although his ideas were proven demonstrably incorrect, alarmists in every generation have renewed the fear that the world is in imminent danger of collapse due to overpopulation, an idea that even the current batch of climate alarmists has now disavowed. At his Senate confirmation hearing in 2009, Holdren denied that the increasing population is necessarily bad or that government should have any role in determining the optimum population. Now, environmentalist Stuart Brand admits that rather than overpopulation, underpopulation is in fact a key concern for humanity. Quote, "By the second half of the century, the population crisis will be seen as not enough people," end quote, he said in recorded remarks last week. But after 200 years of fear-mongering, the population control and environmental alarmism has fostered a violent and dangerous attitude amongst some members of the public.
There was a daycare, or is a daycare in that building. All of the children were taken from the daycare safely. The individual has been identified as James J. Lee. He goes by the name Lee.
He's put out a manifesto, which we're going through now, parsing it to be able to bring you different parts of it without having to reveal his entire invasion plan here.
And of this thing, there are 11 parts. And then he says, humans are most destructive, filthy, pollutive creatures around, and we are wrecking what's left of the planet with their false morals and breeding culture. It is the responsibility, he says, of everyone to preserve the planet they live on by not breeding any more children who will continue their filthy practices. Children represent future catastrophic pollution, whereas their parents are current pollution. In all caps and with an exclamation point, no more babies. Population growth is a real crisis. You know, this guy doesn't deserve this. That's all I'm going to read for now.
The increasingly violent rhetoric of global warming proponents comes exactly as the global warming hypothesis itself begins to disintegrate, leading many to speculate that recent blunders like the 1010 advertisement are a rearguard action on the part of a movement that has lost the hearts and minds of the general public. In a Pew Research poll from January of this year, Americans ranked action on global warming dead last among a list of 21 domestic priorities for the U.S. government. A BBC poll released this February showed that only 26% of the British population think that climate change is man-made. In March, a Gallup poll showed that the number of Americans who believe global warming alarmism has been generally exaggerated has risen from 31% in 1997 to an all-time high of 48% this year. And in a particularly devastating blow to global warming alarmists who revert to the logical fallacy known as appeal to authority to attempt to win debates on the subject, the UK's prestigious Royal Society has had to completely revise its former assertions that man-made greenhouse gas emissions are causing global warming and that this warming presents an imminent threat to humanity. Earlier this year, a petition by 43 of the Society's own members resulted in a review panel that sought to bring the Royal Society's position on climate change in line with the latest thinking on the subject. The revised Royal Society position on the phenomenon, released earlier this week, reads in part, quote, "The size of future temperature increases and other aspects of climate change, especially at the regional scale, are still subject to uncertainty," end quote. The report states, before going on to conclude, quote, "It is not possible to determine exactly how much the Earth will warm, or exactly how the climate will change in the future, and there remains the possibility that hitherto unknown aspects of the climate and climate change could emerge and lead to significant modifications in our understanding," end quote. On a positive note for global warming alarmists, however, they can now count the CIA actor who has been hired to portray the long-dead Osama bin Laden as one of their proponents.
حيث إن عدد ضحايا التغيرات المناخية الحالية كبير جدا، فضلا عن الزيادة المتوقعة حسب الدراسات، فهي أكبر بكثير من ضحايا الحروب التي تجند لها الدول في جيوشها الأشداء من رجالها، وتدخلهم أفضل برامج التدريب، وتقتطع لها قدرا كبيرا من ميزانياتها.